Well, here we are in diss track number 4. How far will Matty go? That's really up to Xbox to decide, because I thought we were done yesterday. 3 Xbox videos in a row. We covered the fallout of the situation, all of the leaks from the situation. Kind of thought that was it. And the reason I thought Xbox was going to go into hiding is because there's no way you can put a good spin on any of these events. We've seen through those leaks the internal strife, the debate, the uncertainty, and most certainly the desperation to survive from Xbox. And there's just no way you can spin "we're trying to appease shareholders and also stay alive here" into something positive for gamers, into something positive for Xbox fans. There's just no way you can do that. So I was under the assumption that there's no way Microsoft is dumb enough to let one of their gaming execs step out onto a stage and talk about this current situation, let alone that one of these execs would ever want to do that. But here we have in today's video Sarah Bond, who sat down with Dina Bass of Bloomberg to talk about everything that's going on right now, to talk about gaming getting more expensive and failing to grow, to talk about why is Tango Gameworks shut down, to talk about these shuttered studios and why Xbox fans should have faith, to talk about Activision games coming to Game Pass. All of the right questions were asked, and this is the funny part about interviews. A lot of people always say, like, Matty, I wish you could interview like Todd Howard, XYZ. The reality is that you can get the right interview targets, but as you will see here, it doesn't matter who you get. If they are PR trained and they got all those answers prepped and ready to go, you can push every button. You can ask every single right question. You're just not going to get the best answers. And this is a perfect example of that, because these are some of the most PR coded, horrible attempts at a positive spin on an awful situation I've seen. And I hate to see that it's Sarah Bond, because she was one of the people that I was really happy to see rising up the ranks in Xbox. And to throw her to the wolves here when I think this should have been like Matt Booty or Phil Spencer, that's a damn shame on its own. For now, we're going to take a look at various clips throughout this interview. I'll have it fully linked down below, but we're going to cover every highlight of it. It's only like a 15-minute listen if you're curious, but we're really going to go through the majority of it here. So let's start off at the top. Gaming's not doing well. What can Xbox do to turn it around? Here's Sarah Bond's response.
Yeah, you know, the last year or so in video games, largely the industry's been flat. And even in 2023, we saw just some tremendous releases, tremendously groundbreaking games, but still the growth didn't follow all of that. And you know, a lot of that's related to our need to bring new players in, make gaming more accessible, but all of that has been happening at the same time that the cost associated with making these beautiful AAA blockbuster games is going up, and the time it takes to make them is going up. And so much of our focus as Xbox is about how we do things to help the industry all up, while also ensuring that our brand, you know, everything that we do is there through this moment of transition.
Now, I know we have games like Hi-Fi Rush and Redfall on our minds when she's talking about how we had these tremendous releases and they didn't really move things forward. To me, this is an admission that Starfield also failed to move things forward. We already knew it failed to move Game Pass forward, but to kind of see that even revenue didn't move forward is, again, I think underlining how bad Game Pass is for the sales of their games, where I'm imagining with the amount of players and hype that Starfield had, could have moved the needle for them, but their own ecosystem, their own economy is hurting them deeply. She also gave us the same rigmarole that we've heard in 1,000,001 different interviews, which is gaming is this small. However, budgets are this big and timelines are getting this big and everything's growing except the base there. And the answer for these execs has been, well, let's smash down every wall. Let's start doing multi-platform releases. And I'm of the mindset that, hey, even if you got your PlayStation games on Ouya, you got your Nintendo games on Xbox, you got your Xbox games on smartphones, whatever it may be, you can break down all of those walls, but that final wall will still be standing at the end of it all. You will still have to go back to the drawing board and reorient how you spend money on these projects. It's the budget and the timelines that are not sustainable. We need to do a deep case study of the Xbox 360 PS3 era. Look at what worked there, where you had fantastic games that didn't chew up all of your time, made in a reasonable amount of time. Again, I always go back to Uncharted. A whole trilogy delivered an entire generation. Do you hear about that now? Look at Final Fantasy VII. I love Remake, I love Rebirth, but we're probably going to get the next entry of that by the end of the PS5, maybe the PS6. We're getting full series across multiple generations now. And by the way, Final Fantasy VII being an example of something quick. We need to go back to the drawing board and make games smaller, make them tighter, because even if you grow gaming, you're going to scale the budget and the timelines to that audience and again hit that wall, and then there's going to be no room to grow. You have to reorient how a game is made now, not down the stretch when we have, instead of 25 million console users, we have instead hundreds of millions of users who could potentially buy our games because our platform is available on every device imaginable. I just don't think it's going to pan out the way they are thinking it's going to, and I think it'll lead to a crash of some kind. Especially if you take a look at Hi-Fi Rush, a success now deemed failure. This is a game that hit about 3 million players through Game Pass. Let's say that they were floating around the 25 million subscriber mark because this game came out before we got that new milestone mark of 33 million. Ladies and gentlemen, not even a quarter of the Game Pass base was interested in this super surprising, high-quality gem. That's not a dig on the game, but the reality is that ratio is not going to shift just because you get more people involved. If anything, more games are just going to float down to the bottom, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I don't want to spin my wheels on this too much because the real fascinating answers are coming up right now. So, how should Xbox gamers interpret these closures is what Dina asked Sarah. Here's her response.
You know, I'll go back to what I was saying about the industry. And when we looked at those fundamental trends, we feel a deep responsibility to ensure that the games we make, the devices we build, the services that we offer are there through moments, even when the industry isn't growing and when you're through a time of transition. And the news we announced earlier this week is an outcome of that. And our commitment to make sure that the business is healthy for the long term. But that said, our commitment to having our own studios and working with partners to have games large and small. You know, we're a platform where you can play GTA, but you can also play Power World, where you can play Call of Duty, and you can also play Pentiment. That doesn't change. And frankly, our commitment to Bethesda and the role that it plays is part of Xbox in everything we do. It's actually been pretty fantastic. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to check it out. The Fallout TV show was on Amazon, and it's been great to see people fall in love with that universe, but also what it's done for the games themselves and people going back and exploring everything that's inside of that. There's some other great things that are coming from our studios later this year. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I was a big indie fan growing up. Looks like you were too. So you should check that out. But really right now for us and our teams, our focus is on the people impacted and doing everything that we can do to help them through this hard transition.
I don't know if my media literacy is outright garbage here. I listened back to this section 4 times just to be like, am I understanding what she's saying is right? So, hey, these are these closures that are happening. What should Xbox fans feel right now? And Sarah proceeds to say that, well, we have a deep responsibility to ensure that games and services and hardware remain through this time of transition and growth. And so we shut down these studios, which to me says, hey, we're trying to save money to make these things continue to work. But wouldn't you want to reorient and change how the economy of your ecosystem works? Wouldn't that be priority number 1? Or is that too catastrophic for you to do? And know what she left out there. It's their responsibility to make sure games, services, and devices are always available. What about the creators? This is what I'm talking about. They can say all day on camera the care there is for developers, but I'm not seeing it. Especially when afterwards you try to take this falsified victory lap on things like the Fallout TV show. You weren't involved in that. It's the same thing Xbox did with Modern Warfare 3's release. It came out and they're like, yeah, it's doing great for us. For us, bro, they just joined the team. You weren't there for the whole entire development cycle, and that game was sent out to die, basically. It was awful. So just like, this is what Xbox has been doing, and people have been cheering them on for so long with these weird victory laps that they had no attachment to, but now it's flying right in their face. The next answer, though, is the most fascinating one. Tango Gameworks. That's the one people are most angry about that had been closed down. Here's what Sarah Bond had to say about it getting shut down.
You know, one of the things I really love about the games industry is it's a creative art form, and it means that the situation and what success is for each game and studio is also really unique. Like, there's no one size fits all to it for us. And so we look at each studio, each game team, and we look at a whole variety of factors when we're faced with sort of making decisions and trade-offs like that. But it all comes back to our long-term commitment to the games we create, the devices we build, the services, and ensuring that we're setting ourselves up to be able to deliver on those promises.
So I know it's considered kind of tasteless and weird to break down body mannerisms in an interview, but Sarah Bond had that pit in her stomach moment, no doubt. The rapid blinking, the wrinkling up of her face at the start of the answer, hard swallowing in the middle of the answer, the 1,000-yard stare, like it was all there where panic set in when that question was asked, like, oh God, there's no good answer for this. And whether it was because PR told her, this is what you're going to say, and if you want to keep your job, you better go out there and say that, or she wanted to say something different, or she was just terrified of the blowback, whatever it may be, that bodily reaction told me everything I need to know about the situation without her even uttering a word. When you are asked about a studio closing and your answer is, I love that gaming is a creative art form, and there's no one size fits all for success, you're trying to tell us at the end of the day that Tango Gameworks made a successful game, according to your own staff, the VP of marketing at Xbox. It was a success in all areas. And you're telling me there's different measurements of success so that even a success, which Dina mentioned, like, hey, it won awards, it had great engagement in Game Pass, there was everything there to suggest it was a positive. Why did this studio still get shut down? And you're like, well, there's all different measures of success, and even a success means that it's not a success. What? It makes no sense. This is why I'm saying, like, you could not get on camera and try to make any sense of this at all. It goes back to delivering on long-term promises. One of your long-term promises was to ensure that these smaller teams could trust an Xbox to make the small games that they wanted to make, and it would feed Game Pass. But now all of a sudden you bring in Activision, which completely destabilized your entire business, and you didn't even run the numbers on that clearly because it has wrecked studios in the meantime and has put others like Obsidian, Compulsion, etc. on notice. Ninja Theory especially on notice. It's an unbelievable non-answer here. A couple other things she talked about was that there's no data for Xbox games on PlayStation, but they're really encouraged by the reception. This is run-of-the-mill for Xbox, and it was something that we've talked a lot about over on Last Stand on how Xbox's lack of numbers when it comes to sales figures, it's always like percentages. We never really know how a game does, ever. We just have to trust that it might be doing well because they're trying to feed all the information through their execs. That worked for a long while. Even at times they fooled me, I'm not gonna lie. But now those times are over, and so I'm curious if there's any adjustments there, but I doubt there ever will be. So we have no idea how Xbox games are doing on PlayStation other than Satya Nadella saying, hey, there's 7 Xbox games in the top 25 on PlayStation this month. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're selling like hotcakes. That's just the assumption. Sarah also talked a bit about game preservation and taking things forward, presumably for the next generation, almost like smart delivery, I would think. But this was when she was asked about concern for Xbox, and she claims that it's the entire industry and not just them. This is a really easy answer to spin off because so many fanboys on Twitter have really been saying this about all their companies. When PlayStation went through a bunch of layoffs at Bungie, there was that same sort of level of defense. When Xbox did all those layoffs, this was the same level of defense. It's the entire industry, and yeah, it's awful, but it also requires accountability and answers because the reasoning we've originally been told is pretty much, hey, we overhired during COVID and we didn't anticipate it falling off, which is the most mind-boggling thing ever, that we all thought we'd be inside forever, so we hired according to that with remote work. Anyway, we learned about an Xbox mobile store, so let's hear Sarah talk about that very fun thing.
And so in July, we are going to be launching our mobile store experience. We're going to start actually by bringing our own first-party portfolio to that. So you're going to see games like Candy Crush show up in that experience, games like Minecraft. And then we're going to extend that capability to partners so that they can also take advantage of it and have a true cross-platform gaming-centric mobile experience. We're going to start on the web. And we're doing that because that really allows us to have it be an experience that's accessible across all devices, all countries, no matter what, independent of the policies of, closed ecosystem stores. And then we're going to extend from there. So I'm excited about it just because it's something that we've wanted to do for a long time. We've heard gamers talking about it for a long time, and we're now at the point where we can take those steps.
You know what's so funny about this? They're launching it in July, right? And they talked about like Candy Crush, Call of Duty Mobile, Minecraft. It's all going to be here. Man, they just shut down a mobile studio that could have been putting games right in this storefront. Like, I don't understand how you launch a mobile store and shut down one of the few mobile game developers you own. I get Candy Crush makes big bucks. I get Call of Duty Mobile makes big bucks. Minecraft makes big bucks. But you're telling me that Alpha Dog just wasn't making anything, or you couldn't throw an IP their way? Like, you had a mobile game studio for your new mobile storefront and you shut them down. It's just like baffling logic. She mentions this is across all devices, all countries, no matter what, and independent of policies of the closed ecosystem stores, and that they want to extend this to partners in the future as well, extending it beyond the web, likely meaning they're going to rival Google/Apple mobile app stores. So yeah, Xbox has been really pushing against the Apple mandate, especially when Epic was in court with them. So this kind of lines up with where they're going with things. It seems like they're going to be bringing the, quote, Xbox experience to this mobile storefront. Y'all know how I feel about mobile gaming. It's not what I'm here for, but I definitely will be keeping my eye on this because Xbox seems to be really hard on the fact that like this is going to be what stabilizes our business. But we also saw that Game Pass was supposed to be that, and the big AAA games releasing every quarter was supposed to be that. So this isn't really an assuring thing. It's more like their next hope. And after that, if it doesn't make them the money they want, then I don't know what they do. Last but not least, we got a little bit of an update on Activision games on Game Pass. What happens is that she says that you're going to see more big games going into Game Pass later this year. And in the middle of that, Dina says, is this including Activision games? And Bond says, across the whole slate. You're going to see some really amazing things, and keeping that as something that is really special for Xbox players is central for us. This is suggesting that Call of Duty is coming to Game Pass. That's how a lot of people interpreted it. Like, those are literally the headlines. I'm still not sold on the idea. I think they are leaving, if they're trying to make money, they are leaving a ton of revenue on the table. Maybe they do a one-year experiment, but you just risk this catastrophe with your biggest IP when you've already in one entry trained people to how nice it is to be able to download it free 99, and then next year comes around, it's like, sorry, it's not in the subscription service. It creates inconsistencies on what can and can't qualify for the subscription service. I don't think it makes sense from a business standpoint if Activision Blizzard is your main driver of revenue right now. Xbox would have not made money in the last year if not for the acquisition of Activision Blizzard King. So you need to sell this thing. You need the money from that. You cannot afford to have people not buy it. At least that's my read of the situation from the outside looking in. If Xbox dares to put it on Game Pass, I'll put my foot in my mouth, but I can't imagine that lasts long. I can't imagine this is suddenly going to save Game Pass when we all see clearly that people aren't buying enough games over on Xbox because of Game Pass. And how can you blame them? I'm sure we all have friends like this, but I personally have a group of friends who do not stay subscribed to Game Pass. Anytime they see a cool game coming around, they'll go to like a site like Eneba, get a really cheap code, get Game Pass for a month, play the game through, and unsubscribe. And even if they give Xbox their money, they're there for a month, play the game, and unsubscribe. Like, that's what most people do with Game Pass. But there's this kind of loyalist mentality from a lot of people online of like, you have to stay subscribed to Game Pass. It's like, no, I don't. I don't stay subscribed to like Netflix or Hulu or any of these other subscription services. Like, I cancel them whenever I'm not using them. It's going to be the same thing with Game Pass, especially when the prices go up, which I think is an inevitability. That's the thing, is if Call of Duty is going to go into Game Pass, as I said yesterday, it's going to come with a price hike. I can't imagine they keep things the same and go like, all right, let's see how it rocks. Anyway, that's the interview. That's Xbox's response to what's going on here. So yeah, a lot of non-answers, a lot of just, I can't believe they let her go out and do this. I really can't. There's no win in this. There's no win in this. Even if it was booked, like they were like, hey, we're doing this at Bloomberg. The fact that they couldn't even get out of it is unbelievable, because I just don't think there was going to be any sort of win here. This is one of those moments, just don't take any interviews, tuck your tail between your legs, and live to fight another day. Go celebrate games on the June 9 showcase and pretend you care then, right? That would at least look a little better. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for you. I will be out for the weekend, so if anything develops during that time, unless it's absolutely drastic, I will catch you all on Monday or Tuesday. Thank you for bearing with me this week. It has been at least entertaining to cover this with all of you. I appreciate the immense support on these videos. And again, take excellent care of yourselves. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.